Hello and welcome to part 2 of our series on how to improve adherence to strength training. This is a really important series that I think will be very helpful for all physical health practitioners to improve their businesses. If you can improve adherence to strength training, you can improve results, client retention, essentially your value, and lots of other really cool stuff. So we'll get right into it. I'm going to do a bit of a review. We're talking about the elephant in the room in our business, which is adherence to strength training. It is the reason we call it the biggest problem in health is because when we look at all of the different possibilities when it comes to health, everything from cancer to cardiovascular disease to injuries to all kinds of ailments. There's one thing that you can measure that affects all causes of mortality, and it's strength. So if we can get people to stick to strength training, the strength training, in particular the strength training that we prescribe, then we have the potential to improve global health and adherence to strength training. Of all the things we've learned, I've been in this industry for a very long time. Of all the things that we've learned, adherence to strength training really hasn't changed in a very long time. So, this is, I've been working on this for a very long time, and I hope, I know that this stuff will really help you because it's made a huge difference in my business. And so what's the deal if we don't change adherence to strength training? I don't know if that screen, tell me if that screen's too small. I'll be switching back and forth a little bit. Because we're reviewing this stuff, a couple of the things you've seen already. If you don't improve adherence to strength training, it negatively affects your business. And for a lot of us, we've become complacent over many years because it's a frustrating subject. But it really does affect your reputation. It affects the sense of impact, what you're trying to do with your clients. It affects your value. Absolutely. It affects your schedule, because if people don't stick to the program, they don't get the results. That means you have higher turnover, which of course affects your lifestyle. So it's something we really want to change personally for our businesses, but also just for the end result for the client. If we can get them to do a better job at what they're supposed to do, everything improves. And imagine, so when we look at the stats right now on what is actually happening in our industry, the average in physiotherapy industries is they do about 35% of the exercises that they're prescribed. Imagine if we can get to 100, how much of a massive impact that would have on our business. And not only that, but one of the things that's become really important to me, and one of the true beliefs of our company, is that physical health practitioners are really the center of information for our clients. And if we can start to have a greater impact, get really good results with them, and then we become this place that they can come to for information. Like it's really crucial that we do that, because just like any other industry, like I go to a lawyer for advice because I don't know all the stuff that they know. They're coming to us, and we're oftentimes the first entry point into their health journey. It could be that they're there for an injury, but they have all these other questions and all these other things that we could be helping them with that are potentially really important. So becoming the center of their health journeys is for me is massively important. So the last time we chatted, we went through, I talked about the fact that there's 3 stages to this, or 3 phases to this, and we talked about buy-in and trust. And I'm just going to review it very quickly so that we're very clear on what happened. So part 1 of the buy-in and trust was your pre-qualification. So really getting the opportunity to vet your clients, really just a 15-minute call, find out what the challenges are, let them know how you work and what it costs, and ask them if it makes sense, because this can be a real time saver. Now, I did want to also offer an alternative. If you don't have the capacity to do a pre-qualification, then it's really important for your business and for setting the groundwork for everything that you're going to do with your client is be the first to give. So this is where, and oftentimes people are saying, well, what do I give online, and what, there are lots of opportunities to give to your clients first. And if at all possible, do that. Find something that's going to be really useful for them and hand it over for free, just because you want to help them. So that can make a really big difference. So just wanted to mention that, because we didn't mention that in the last part 2. Give again and be sure. So this is the free consultation idea. And, for my free consultation, it's, the opportunity to vet your clients, allow your clients to vet you, know what the issue is, support your network. So if the issue isn't in your wheelhouse, refer out. It's a good way to communicate with your network. Explore the magnitude of the problem with your client, and then ask that very important question at a scale from 1 to 10. How important is this to you? And if they don't answer an 8, I don't bring them into my business. Now, you may not have that opportunity, but what you can do is, if you have the conversation with them and, they're a 5, I won't change anything about my life. I really like the way it is. I'll listen to a few things you do. You sort of know that they're not going to necessarily adhere, at least now, early on. So you might categorize them different until you have maybe a deeper conversation with them and get them to that 8 on 10 on, on that importance scale, what it is to them. And so an alternative to this, so this I used to do, if you can't do the free consultation, this is before I did free consultations, and before I had a 12-month program. So if you don't have programs like this, then it's totally fine. One of the things that it was really impactful for my clients is when I did my first session with them. So I did the initial part of my assessment, figured out what's going on with them on my own time. When they're gone, between that appointment and the next appointment, what I did was I created a priority list of the things that we needed to work on. So I would, through your assessment, you find these minor things, and you find major things, and you find, and maybe you give them the one thing that we can work on today, and that's really great. That's how you should be working. But I created this list for them so they understood everything that they could possibly be working on, and what things were important and what things weren't. It's like when you go to a mechanic and they tell you, it's like, well, there's this, you don't need to do that. It's a problem, but whatever, it's not going to make a difference. And then there's these 3 things that, you really need to work on, because otherwise, you're going to get stuck on the highway somewhere. So it was that idea, and when I handed that over to my clients, it really clarified in their heads what was going on, what the magnitude of the problem was, and what the steps were. And what I used to do as we go along, and what you can do is I would check them off as we go, all the things that we have addressed over time, and they can see the progress there. So if you can't do the free consultation and sort of organize yourself that way, and you don't have a 12-month program like mine where I can follow them for long periods of time, then maybe do something like that. And then part 3 was the meaningful assessment. So doing an assessment that your clients completely fully understand and can buy into. That's, we do assessments that we understand. They're very arbitrary to our clients. And so having that and working with the Accolete device. Well, speaking of which, for those that didn't see that last time, just a force dynamometer. And all it does is measure tension. And what we can do with that is we can take our assessments that we're doing that we understand, and we can turn them into something that they understand. So doing our excuse me, MMT, so manual muscle testing, now with objective results, where we're recording the force per repetition, the force capacity. So this adds up, gives it an accumulation score for how much actual force they can produce over multiple repetitions, the force generation capacity per workout, and then for whatever amount of time, and it all gets recorded. So, it's important to do that sort of stuff. And today, so that's our little review. Today, we're going to move into phase 2, which is meaningful purpose. And so it's not exactly, so my original title on this was meaningful goals. It's actually, goals is sort of it's an okay term, but purpose is a much better term for this. And what I'm going to walk you through are all the different various things and my understandings of how our clients work, and what we can be doing with them to really set some good targets to work towards. So first thing is what it isn't. And so I want you to keep in mind that inspiration, motivation, they're great. They're inspiring. We see them online. This is not what we want to set with our clients. We don't want to be giving them mottos and mantras that just sort of make them feel good. We want to actually set up processes that will make them take action. And so this is stuff that it's all over the place now. I first learned it from Tony Robbins, and it's really powerful way of looking at things. When a client says, or even for yourself, I should do that, that's what's happening today, where people aren't doing this stuff because they just feel like they should. What we have to move people to is that they must do that. And we're going to talk about how to create that mechanism, so they really feel like they're engaged in the process. And online, you see a lot of talk online now. It's like, well, is it motivation or is it discipline? This is ultimately the difference between motivation and discipline. Discipline comes from I have to. That's just the way it is, and I have no choice. Motivation can be fleeting. It's really connected to our emotions. It's connected to what's going on, how we feel that day, what we did last night, how hydrated we are. It can, whereas discipline is more about like, doesn't matter how you feel, you got to do this today. So that's where we're going with this. So let's talk about finding purpose, because one of the first things that I know when I talk to practitioners about purpose is like, well, depending on what kind of clients you have, like what am I supposed to do for purpose when I'm working with somebody with an ankle sprain or as minor back injuries, or it's just looking for this little, I often get it, and I'm sure you all do too, is you have that one person, oh, what's that one thing that I can do that helps me do this, and it's like that little piece of advice that they want. And I've really transitioned over the years to having a deeper conversation if they're willing to, because the one-off appointments and the one-off solutions don't tend to work very well, because I do full biomechanical assessments all the time. It really gives me a lot of insight as to what's going on with their body and why it's functioning the way it's functioning. And there are a lot of things to work on, from how to run and how to walk, how to pull things, like how to get rid of that pain. Why is my shoulder always sore? There's there's lots to work on. So even when somebody comes in, let's say with an ankle sprain, we can look at that ankle sprain and say, like, okay, I'll just help you with your pain and get rid of your swelling, and it's great. It's not necessarily wrong. It's not a long-term solution though, because you and I know that if somebody comes in with an ankle sprain, there are a whole bunch of mechanisms that have happened now in that during that injury and following that injury that are impeding things like, neurological input, proprioception, kinesthetic awareness. Maybe there's fear happening now. Maybe there's all these things that are going on. And it's like, okay, I'm looking at you with your ankle sprain, but fixing your pain is not really just the thing that we want to work on, right? Fixing your minor back pain or giving you that one little thing isn't true purpose, right? So what I'm going to talk about is setting true purpose, and it's a system that I've been using for a long time, and I've been teaching for a long time actually, which is target, mindset, and focus. Today we're going to talk about target and mindset. Focus we're actually going to talk about in phase 3. So let's get right to it. Part 1 is about target. So this is the mechanical why. It's like, well, you want to reduce pain, you want to get fit. In my consultation, my initial consultation with people, I ask the questions like, why are we here? What are you trying to get out of this? And it's like, I just want to be, in better shape. I just want to get rid of this pain. And it's like, okay, it's not really much of a purpose, and it's not really much to work with, to be honest, as a practitioner. What I really want to know is, what do you want to get back to? What do you care about? What is this stopping you from doing? And I want to ask the hard questions so that they understand that it's not just about, getting you to be able to walk from the, couch to the fridge, but getting you back to the performance, that whatever level of performance it is. You don't need to be a high performance athlete or anything like that. But what are you getting back to? You want to be able to play hockey again, play basketball again with your sprained ankle or your low back pain? You want to make sure that back pain never comes back again. Like, what are we actually working towards here that's actually meaningful? So this is our target. So let's just, we'll dive into that a little bit more. So setting a compelling target for pain. What is this limiting is a very good question. And it's not like, well, it's limiting me to move my ankle. It's like stopping me from playing basketball. It's stopping me from gardening. It's stopping me from whatever it is. It's a really good conversation to have because it sets the stage for where we're going. What are you trying to get back to? Once you have that, if you're on the injury side, try and do everything you can to measure that task. So, and this is what we're doing with Accolete and our program is we'll look at like, okay, what is it you want to be able to do? Or what did you just tell me that you want to be able to do? And is there a way that we can measure it? And to be honest, it's really been a journey for us because force dynamometers to this date have been egregiously expensive and just not available. So there's not a lot of data out there, but people like you and I now are going to create a ton of this data and create some really meaningful end goals. Like, how much leg strength are you going to need to be able to do that? How much stability are you going to be able to need? And is there a way to measure that stability? Which there is. We can measure biomechanical stability with this sort of stuff. And then once we can figure out the measurement of the task, then we can measure the person's current capacity, not just one-time strength, but we can measure, how many repetitions they do and what their current capacity to generate force under stress or be stable under stress or anything like that. And if we know where we're starting and we know where we're going, this is a really clear map for them. So now what we can do is, and what we created in the app is that we can say like, okay, you need to be able to generate this amount of force, over, 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever. And here's your ultimate target. I want you to get to, 200,000 pounds of force generated over the next 6 or 8 weeks or 10 weeks or something like that. And now they have something to really work towards, something that is quantifiable, that they can build towards a little bit every day, and becomes more meaningful. If you're in the health side of things, The health, I remember when I took a marketing course a bunch of years ago, and they talked about the triad of why health products are so popular. And it's really because people are trying to do one of three things. They're trying to get laid more, trying to make more money, and trying not to die. So essentially, what we're looking at is they want to look and feel better, right? They want to be more productive, um, and they want their bodies to function properly. And like, they want their lives back. They want to be able to have control of what's going on. And again, what we can do with that is we can measure that capacity. We can measure, that there's a lot of things we're already measuring, and we can help our clients with this, measuring their sleep and their hydration and their nutrition and their stress levels and all that sort of stuff. And handing these tools over to your clients is really, really important to have these measurements that they can really dig into. And then also for us, the strength, when we look at their capacity, they want to look and feel better. It's like, well, what does that mean? I remember having conversations with people. It's like, oh, I want to get into bodybuilding. It's okay. You want to get, obviously, you want to feel stronger. It's like, what do you want to be able to do? And oftentimes you go from these like generic conversations to like, like be like a triathlete or be this, that, whatever. Okay, now we're talking about something that's measurable. I want to be able to, push more and compete with my friends. And this, let's get these measurable goals. We set targets and work with them and set. It's really important in the health realm to pick a percentage of growth that makes sense to your client, that your client can buy into, and then extrapolate that out and say, okay, here's your current capacity now, because they're not necessarily dealing with an injury. Here's your current capacity now, and this is what your capacity is going to be. This is what we want your capacity to be in the future. And now we have a roadmap, and we have something that's long term that you can work towards. That's sort of a mechanical target. And then the last one there being performance, understanding that people in performance, they're looking for essentially two things. They're looking for achievement. They're achievement driven people. That's why they're in performance. We're talking about high performance at this point. And they're, even if they're not the highest level of performance, like in Olympics or whatever, but really active people, they're looking for growth and development. This is what they thrive on. So measurement to these people is essential. When you have clients like this that are in your business, you know this already, they measure everything, and strength and force generation capacity over a period of a set or 15 minutes or a day or whatever. These things they can really dig into, and you can do a lot of work with these people like that. So, and this is where our, SMART goals come in. And for mechanical target, we're talking about the specificity, we're talking about what the measurable is, and we're talking about it being time bound. So when we talk about SMART goals and we're talking about our mechanical target, these are the three things that we're talking about. So making sure that we're sticking to that program is a really good way of looking at things. So let's talk about the second part of it, which is mindset. And this is the emotional why. And this is the thing that's going to drive your client to do. This is going to essentially transfer them from I should do something to I must do something. This picture is not about the shark. This picture is about the fish. Oops, went the wrong way. This picture is about the fish. They must move. It doesn't matter what's in the way, right? This is the kind of motivation you want to instill in your clients, because then you don't need to babysit their accountability or do anything like that. It's you create leverage within them, and they will stick to the program. There are a lot of programs out there that talk about leverage, but essentially leverage is, there's a lot of, if you ever get in a conversation with somebody that says, like, I can't do that. Well, I mean, and this is a very extreme example. It's not something I would do, obviously. But if I took a gun to your dog, would you do it? And the answer is inevitably yes, right? So it's not that you can't, it's that you just don't have the right motivation. Of course, that's not the right kind of motivation. That's external motivation, that's negatively driven. But can we create this in our clients once they understand that everything is about a level of motivation? Then we can instill positive leverage within them to be able to do the thing that they need to do. So over my career, I've had lots of these conversations, but in my wall of why of where I've always wanted to create this. I call it my wall of why. It's an intellectual wall of why right now. I don't have one yet, but this is one of my future goals is to have written really the words of my clients over time and what those compelling reasons as to why they're doing what they're doing. Like to lead by example for my kids. Because I put tracking. I'm trekking. I have somebody come in. It's like I'm trekking for 7 days. I'm doing Machu Picchu or something like that. 3 months from now, and my knee is killing me. I need to solve this problem, and it was really like vacation's already paid for. I had a guy come in, and he had a back pain and knee pain, and he was like really out of sorts because he was like, I really want to. My daughter, she's just getting into triathlon. I'm at the right age, like I should be able to do these things. She wants me to do a triathlon with her, and it would just like mean the world to me to be able to do that. And that's what we worked on. And matter of fact, what we got him to do is sign up for the triathlon that day. That was during the free consultation, and I think it was 7 months later or 8 months later, he ran the triathlon with his daughter and had a great time. It was awesome. I've had people say, like, I know if I continue this way, I'm going to end up in a wheelchair, especially people with disabilities. The more they have to really work on things to keep themselves moving and keep themselves so they don't just end up in a wheelchair, you know? And probably the funniest one I heard so far, and be honest, they didn't do it, but he was telling me about it. It was during the free consultation. It's like, oh, we almost did this with our buddies last year. We wanted to all get in shape, and so we were going to sign up for a bodybuilding competition, and even if we never trained between this day and that day, we were going to go on stage. And I was like, that you should have. That's like that would have been amazing motivation, because just knowing that you're going to go up on stage and have to show off all the work you put in the last 9 months would have been a great motivator. Another really good one that, and this only came out, through conversations and flushing this out with my client, was I had a guy that was overweight. Really not a really good health profile, tried a bunch of things, had some, emotional trauma, which a lot of us do. But I just kept asking him, it's okay, well, what's really, really important to you? And eventually he says, well, I want to be, a good mentor for my kid when he has kids. And his kid at the time was 14 or 15. And I just looked at him and I was like, I don't mean to be harsh, but are you going to be here? And that was a very powerful motivator for him, and had him train very hard for the, following whatever it was, 9 months or a year, losing over 150 pounds, and, really, really powerful stuff. So. But I also understand that for a lot of you, it's, you don't have the capacity to do the free consultation thing, maybe, or, but you can do this in your first few sessions. You do your assessment, you're giving them the one thing, and you start having conversations with these people. It's like, okay, so how is this whatever we're dealing with right now, how is it affecting your life? How is your lack of fitness, or your lack of performance, or your lack of or your pain that you're experiencing? How is this affecting your life? And what if we could make it better than before you came in here? How would that affect you? And you'll see, and there are a lot of health practitioners out there that'll tell you, we become the pseudo psychological ground for a lot of our clients, because you spend time with them and you're helping them out with things and you build trust. So if you don't have the capacity to do it in a free consultation like I do, because you're just getting your clients that are just showing up on your schedule or something like that, then don't be afraid to have these conversations. Don't be afraid that like, oh well, I've never really had this conversation with this my physio before, or something like that. People really appreciate it. Remember, they are not us. They are not into the whole health and performance and understanding on how the body works and all that sort of stuff as we are. So they tend to appreciate these conversations. So once you know like what's really important to them, and you've looked at the target, and you've looked at the mindset, you've set up some leverage, then what? How do you put this into a strategy? So there's a thing I learned a bunch of years back that I just turned AMP, and maybe you've heard it already. But when they studied how to get people to do things that they wanted them to do, it really came down to three things. You had to give people autonomy. You had to give them some sort of mastery that they could get better at something, and they had to give them a purpose. And when you measured all the other things, so you measured like whether it was giving them more money, or if it was giving them more incentive, none of those things worked. The only things that really worked were autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So this is something that once I know what my end target is. They know what their motivation is. Okay, so now when I'm creating my plan for them, there's the stuff that I got in the assessment, and I'm trying to piece it together in a way that really keeps their drive up and helps to facilitate that leverage too. So we don't want them just working on willpower. That's why we set up their leverage. But everything that we can do to help them progress and stick to it, it's super important that we do that. So let's just talk about that. So the autonomy part, you have to it's not just enough to give somebody an exercise. And this I got out of the martial arts world, is you really have to let them fail and see that failing's okay. You really have to let them, really try on their own, and to be honest, you have to let them get beat up a little bit. And when they come back, and this is the most important part, when they come back and say like, oh, I didn't do my thing, or I failed at this, and I got injured, or whatever, it's okay. It's okay. We're gonna get through it. That's why you're here. I want you to keep working on your own. It's not all about, like I've had clients all the time. They, it's like, oh, can I just work out with you? And, 3 days a week or whatever like that. And yeah, like what happens if I move or you move or whatever? If there's no autonomy, if you don't have any autonomy here, it's never going to last. It's just never going to last. If you're creating, something more grand for your clients. Mastery, again, so we're gonna talk about mastery in phase 3. It's more appropriate conversation in phase 3, and so we'll go straight back to purpose, which we've talked about. But I'll just talk about a few mechanisms that are really important. So internal drive. Let's when we talk about internal drive and how it actually functions, It's you have to be really focused on, they enjoy it, they find it fulfilling, and for me, very much so, it is the what I set up for my clients. It's the pursuit of a challenge. Now, everybody's level of how much they love challenge or whatever is different. I'm not a highly competitive person against someone else. I'm highly competitive against myself. Um, and everybody's different. And some people are, well, it doesn't really matter, but you're going to find that little thing that, and this is where measuring comes back into importance. And we keep talking about it. And this is why we've done this whole thing, is because, that for a lot of people, just having that incremental thing, why does a 10,000 steps program work? It's because it's that, like, oh, that feeling of accomplishment when they get there, that internal reward. The internal reward is that feeling of accomplishment, that overcoming the challenge and enjoying that, instead of the, like, okay, if I do that, then I get an external reward for it. You're going to give me a badge, or you're going to give me this, that, whatever. They're okay, but they're never going to be as powerful as internal drive. And then when we talk about locus of control, this is when we go back to the setting up SMART goals. This is the attainable and realistic. So they have to feel like they are in control of the outcome, and they're in control of their actions. So when you talk to them about what you're setting up for them, and what goals you're giving them, and why these things need to be measurable, is the attainability and the realism has to be a discussion with them. John Berardi with Precision Nutrition out of Waterloo, I think he is, had a really great philosophy on providing advice to anybody that we're working with in the health field. And it's when somebody's walking out, we give them all this stuff, and I would do this. We set up these elaborate programs because in the university we used to do that, and the person's like, okay, that's wonderful. And wait a second, on a scale from 1 to 10, how implementable is this? And if they're not at a 9, you've given them too much to do. It's really important that attainable, realistic thing is attainable and realistic in their mind, because they're thinking about all the different scheduling things. They have a different list of priorities that we do. So you really have to make sure that you're setting them up for success. Not, we tend to think that, and in the media, you think that the success part is like what high performance success is. This is not what success is to a lot of our clients. A lot of our clients is, getting 20 minutes in a day, or getting a half an hour in a day. And if they did that 5-6 days a week, they'd feel like super awesome about themselves. And so really have the conversation about, what measurable you've given them, the thing that they fully understand, and they can look at it and be like, no, I can get this done, and I really want to get it done. And I want to be autonomous, and I want to get better at this. They have that mastery, and they have a purpose, and they really feel that they can get there. So it's super important. Yeah, I sort of covered this already, but how do they know? That's the 9 out of 10. It has to be quantifiable. If it's very arbitrary, it's like, oh, could you do 3 sets of 20 of these in the morning and the night, whatever. And it's one of the reasons why we're transitioning away from using sets and repetitions, because sets and repetitions to people are like, yeah, I mean, I could do that. It's pretty, whatever. And you find out when they come back, it's like, well, yeah, I did 3 sets of 20. It's like, well, why'd you do 3 sets of 20? Well, that's what you said. I have no idea how hard you worked. I have no idea if we're going to get gains doing this exercise. Because there's nothing there for me to measure and to show me that you actually put the intensity that we need. So we move to prescribing with how much force we want them to generate per repetition, an external rotation exercise, whatever it is, doesn't really matter, how much force they can generate and have really good biomechanics, and then measure the full capacity per set. and see what they can do. And now we can say to them, it's like, okay, I want you to do 3 sets, 4 sets, whatever it is of this exercise. Every repetition has to be at or above 20 pounds of force. And I want you to go until you are right to your current or above your current work capacity, which today was 220 pounds. So you can do a lot of repetitions. Um, I need you to build that more. So you can choose to get more intensity per repetition as long as the repetitions are quality. And I want you to get to this threshold. How realistic is this to you now? Now they fully understand how much work is involved. They fully understand that that there's going to be work, and they have something to work towards, and it builds again into this mastery and purpose thing. So it's a much better mechanism for them to understand. When you're using numbers, and so we had this discussion come up about numbers being external or internal motivation. And the answer is yes, it's both. It really depends on how you set it up. You really have to make sure that when you're setting up the goals, it's not that external motivators don't work, they just don't work as well. So internal motivators, again, are like long-term challenges because they love the sense of feeling that accomplishment, which is why numbers work. Numbers work for people. They need that sense of accomplishment. They want the challenge. A lot of people, not everybody, but people want the challenge, and so you're setting up those realistic goals. And then them knowing, and again, this came out of the martial arts world too. It's like we're working on this potentially mundane drill over and over and over and over again. Because if you master it, it will get you to the next step. We can do this with numbers too. It's like if you can get to this work capacity, because now that it's the same as on the other side, and you're becoming more balanced, we can move to the next phase. We can integrate things in. We can give you more complicated exercises once you get to this threshold. So it's, there it's like, okay, I want to build some more mastery. I want to take control of it, feel like I'm getting stronger, that I can get myself to the next level. And these are really good motivators. So I just want you to be careful of that. And that is our much quicker live stream on setting meaningful purpose for your clients. So there's a lot of information about this out there. And if you've been in the industry for any length of time, you've probably come across a lot of this stuff. My biggest takeaway for you is to make sure that handing your clients something that is very quantifiable for them, that they can really buy into. You can build that mastery, you have that leverage, you have that purpose, you know exactly what the target is. Don't take generic targets from clients. I just want to feel better and I want to have a little less pain. Work with people from a personal satisfaction point of view as a practitioner, and maybe you feel differently than I do, but for me, having the purpose myself of getting them from here to something meaningful is much more satisfying. And I can't tell you how many times I've had clients return over the years and say, like, listen, you really made a big difference in my life, and I've been able to do this because of all of the work we put in together, what they put in. And it's a real sense of pride for them, and a sense of pride for me when they come back and tell me these things. So really, really important. The next problem that we're facing is something our industry has not been doing for the longest time very well. I know for years I didn't do it very well, and it kicks you in the ass every time you get it wrong, is showing frequent, objective progress. So we come in, client comes in, says, I don't feel like I'm getting better. Well, sometimes progress is incremental. If you haven't measured it, then you will not be able to display the magnitude of the change in a way that your client understands. So we're going to go through how to set up these milestones, how to set up this process for them so that they know what to do. We're going to talk about, what things we can measure and what things that we can show progress from, maybe even from like debilitating back pain to performance, like how do you set up these mechanisms? Because our industry is not doing a good job, and the drop off rate of clients that don't feel like they're progressing because we haven't been able to demonstrate their progress is astounding. And it's just like that example I talked about in the first live stream we did, which was for a lady that tore her hamstring and felt like she was ready to discharge and go off and do her own thing. And then when the practitioner could show her that she could generate 50 pounds of force on one leg and only 17 on the other, that she finally clued into like, oh, wait a second, I need to do this. Well, now, we get her to 19, we get her to 22, we get her to 25. These are things that they are not going to pick up as progress, right? It feels the same to them until they see the numbers. So we'll be talking about that in detail, and how to set it up, and how to set it up simply so that it's not complicated for you and it doesn't add time to your practice. So it'll be great stuff to learn. So if you have any comments or questions, now's the time. Anybody have comments or questions? I will stick around for a few minutes. I see a comment that just says small. I don't know what that means, Joan, but if you can elaborate, that would be great. So I'll stick around. Incidentally, too, while I'm waiting for that, to see if there are any questions, if there's any comments, especially if there are like problem cases you couldn't figure out, and you want to, me to answer the question, or you have a particular client that you're like, okay, I see what you're talking about, but I don't know how I would apply it to this client. This is really good information. I'm more than happy to share. I've been doing this for a very long time. I know that there's a bit of a learning curve when it comes to measuring everything. And, so how do you get yourself there, and how do you integrate? And, if there are any questions along after the live streams in between, then feel free to email me those questions, and I'll do my best to answer them in the next live stream. For now, thank you very much for your time. I'll keep my eye open for the questions. I'll stay, we'll end our broadcast. I'll stay on for a few minutes. But thank you very much for attending, and we will see you in the next episode.